have dire consequences. In the inner city of Indianapolis, 19-year-old Vashon Mills is on the road to success.
Vashon had a high school education. She then got a nurse's aide certificate and was enrolling in nursing school.
She'd be able to take care of herself, take care of other people, and she was truly on a path to success.
And it looks like she won't have to walk that path alone, when shortly after graduation, Vashon falls in love with a man who has the future on his mind.
She met a man and they got married. He was a nice guy, earned a solid living, and he was in the military.
But military life keeps him away from Vashon more than she'd like. 4 years and 2 daughters later, they divorce.
There was no significant father figure for her. That created a void in her emotionally, which resulted in her neediness towards men.
Vashon and the girls move out on their own. And love quickly finds her again when she meets 23-year-old co-worker Rayshawn Johnson.
Vashon was working at a health care facility, and that's where she had met Rayshawn Johnson.
Oh, okay. I'm Rayshawn.
With names so similar, a match between Vashon and Rayshawn seems like fate. And after a few days of flirting, Vashon falls for him, hard.
They bonded over the fact that they had both recently been divorced. He was accepting of her children, and that brought a lot of comfort.
But Vashon's attraction may burn her in the end.
Vashon, you see the way he treats me?
What did you do? She was under his spell, so she'd pretty much do whatever he asked.
It was a crime of passion. It was one panicked act after another, resulting in a very messy crime.
Newly divorced nursing aide Vashon Mills is falling hard for her co-worker Rayshawn Johnson in the inner city of Indianapolis, Indiana.
He was charming, he listened to her. Sparks were flying, and Vashon was definitely getting pulled in.
Love is enchanting, especially for Vashon, and along came Rayshawn, who told her everything that she needed to hear, who wanted to be that ear for her, who really wanted to listen to her.
The two nursing aides get serious quick, and it isn't long before Rayshawn is visiting Vashon's apartment on a daily basis.
Rayshawn met Vashon's 2 girls and quickly incorporated them into his life.
Oh, Vashon, thank you.
Rayshawn spends any time and money he has trying to win over Vashon and the girls. But 3 weeks into the relationship, their fresh love is already starting to rot when Rayshawn's jealous side takes over.
He did not allow her to talk to any male friends. He kept her away from them. He became increasingly more possessive and controlling of Vashon.
Vashon may have thought that what Rayshawn was doing was just trying to protect her, try to protect the relationship, but the reality was that Rayshawn was beginning to isolate her.
Who are you talking to?
I was talking to my friend.
Let me see your phone.
And Rayshawn's jealousy goes to the extreme, pulling Vashon and the girls completely into his world.
I'm tired of you lying to me. Who are you talking to?
I'm not lying.
Who are you talking to?
He made it absolutely clear to her that he didn't want anybody to come between them. He told Vashon that if anybody ever tried to come between them, he would kill them.
I'm sorry.
I'm tired of you.
Ignoring the warning signs of Rayshawn's irrational behavior, Vashon not only stays with him, she upends her world to be in his life.
About 6 months into their relationship, Rayshawn invited Vashon to move in with him and his mother, which was in Bloomington, about 3 hours away from her family.
Vashon doesn't give the disruption a second thought.
She was moving away from her job. She was moving away from her support system, which was her family, and she now had to enroll her kids in different schools. She'd be completely under the care and control of Rayshawn and his mother.
The living conditions in Rayshawn's mother's housing project apartment are cramped, but Vashon sucks it up until the two can get on their feet. Rayshawn immediately finds work at a customer service company, and Vashon looks for a job so she can re-enroll in nursing school. But things are about to change.
One night, Vashon and Vashon went to bingo night, and when they got there, Vashon noticed an elderly man at the bingo game.
74-year-old Oakley Mitchell is a retired veteran with a kind soul, a giving heart, and a listening ear.
Oakley was drawn to Vashon, and by the end of the night, she pretty much had told him her whole life story.
Normally, Rashawn would be insanely jealous of Vashon talking to anyone else, especially another guy. But Oakley was a senior citizen, much older individual, and therefore was very non-threatening. Just a good old friendly soul.
I've got a big house. I've got plenty of space. You and your boyfriend want to come by, I can make you a pretty good deal.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no problem.
Oakley feels for Vashon's cramped living situation, and he could use an extra hand or two at home.
Oakley lived on a huge farm, and because he was in a wheelchair, he couldn't take care of himself. So he'd often invite young people to come live on his farm in exchange for helping him out. Vashon explained to Oakley that she had a boyfriend and that she would have to ask and bring him, but he was open to it.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Okay, here now, you behave. Bye-bye.
2 weeks after meeting Oakley, Rayshawn, Vashon, and the girls move in. And Vashon seems to be the answer to Oakley's prayers.
She cleaned the house for him, she'd drive him around, she'd even help him put on his pajamas at night.
But just days after moving to the spacious farm, Rayshawn's already feeling crowded out.
From the time they moved onto the farm, Rayshawn was no longer in control. He was not the man of the house because it wasn't his house. He wasn't providing for her, Oakley was, and that did not sit well with Rayshawn.
Hey, rent's due.
Rayshawn and Oakley were at each other's throats around the clock.
She knew they didn't get along, but she never thought he would take it this far.
I asked him, why would you do that?
Two weeks after meeting Oakley Mitchell, Vashon Mills, boyfriend Rayshawn Johnson, and her two little girls moved to Oakley's farm in Secor, Illinois.
Life on the farm was good. Vashon had more space, the girls could run around. Oakley had great company.
Vashon was very fond of Oakley. She treated him like a grandfather. He didn't have any grandchildren of his own, so he enjoyed having Vashon and the children around.
But the budding friendship doesn't sit well with Rayshawn.
Oakley was now getting attention from Vashon. The more the relationship with Vashon and Oakley increased and they became closer, the more antagonized and more resentful and more jealous that Rayshawn became.
Hey, rent's due.
And Oakley makes it clear that the feeling is mutual.
Oakley was frustrated with the way Rayshawn treated Vashon and her children, talked down to them. Oakley did not care for that and did not want that to happen in his home.
You stand being in the same group as that guy. You spend more time with him than me. I'm your boyfriend. Hey, you two stop.
Oakley doesn't fear Rayshawn like Vashon does, and he uses every chance he can to prove it.
Hey, look, you need to stay out of it. This is none of your business.
It is my business. It's my house, my business. If you're gonna act like an animal, I want you to just sleep out back.
He sometimes told him he had to go sleep outside or stay outside of the house, and that would create all kinds of conflict.
Now get going.
Keeping Rayshawn in check becomes a daily battle for Vashon.
For Vashon, this was a real conflict in that she really depended on Oakley and this very stabilizing situation, but yet at the same time, she was still in love with Rayshawn, who did things much different, maybe the opposite of Oakley. So what should have been a very even situation became very destabilizing because of this constant conflict in that area.
This is a man who told her that if anybody ever got in between them, he would kill them. And he did not like where he thought her relationship with Oakley was headed.
3 weeks after moving in, one hot summer night in August, the conflict between the two men takes a deadly turn.
Vashon went upstairs to check on the girls, who were sleeping. She then came back downstairs to change Oakley into his pajamas, but she found him instead on his computer, so she went on into the bathroom.
But Rayshawn has finally reached his breaking point with Oakley.
Look, I'm gonna need you to stand here. What? Just stand here.
He closed the bathroom door, slammed it behind him, and left.
There is an eerie silence. And then 5 gunshots ring out.
Vashon later exited the bathroom and saw Rayshawn in the hallway pacing back and forth with the handgun.
She's seen and known that he carried that gun, but she'd never seen him use it.
In Oakley's bedroom, Vashon makes a grisly discovery.
She discovered Oakley slumped over his computer, and he had been shot.
Oakley is dead, and Vashon is in a state of shock.
She knew they didn't get along, but she never thought he would take it this far.
She ran upstairs to check on the girls, and at some point, Rayshawn snapped out of his daze and started yelling for her to come back downstairs.
Vashon does as she's told.
When Vashon got back downstairs, Rayshawn wanted her to help him clean up the scene.
She was faced with the decision to either turn him in or help him cover it up.
After stewing for weeks, Vashon Mills' boyfriend, Rayshawn Johnson, kills their elderly landlord, Oakley Mitchell, in a jealous rage. A few minutes after shooting Oakley, Rayshawn asks Vashon to help him clean up the crime scene.
She had to make a decision whether she was going to help him cover it up or not.
The choice Vashon makes is to stand by the man she loves.
She immediately began picking up shell casings.
As night turns to day, Rayshawn sets a large fire to dispose of the body.
He dragged the body by the belt and placed it on the burn pile.
But before he got to the burn pile, he pulled Oakley's wallet out of Oakley's pocket and gave it to Vashon.
That old saying, no good deed goes unpunished, is really true here. Because here you have Oakley, who just wanted to really help these people out. He didn't have to extend his home, but he did it. And so what does he get in return? He gets murdered.
With the fire still burning, the couple flees the farm.
They grabbed the kids and went to Bloomington to check into a hotel. Upon getting to Bloomington, they stopped at an ATM, withdrew $400 from Oakley's account.
Vashon is really torn here, because on the one hand, she's really afraid that she might get caught up in this murder with her boyfriend. But on the other hand, she might have to turn against him and let him take the fall by himself. He had been there for her in her mind, and she felt that she had to be there for him till the bitter end.
The next morning, Vashon and Rayshawn returned to the farm to check on the damage.
They discovered that Oakley's body was only partially consumed. Vashon took the grotesque remains, threw them into the trunk of one of Oakley's cars, and drove to a bridge close by.
Determined to rid himself of Oakley once and for all, Rayshawn tosses his body over the bridge, while Vashon looks on.
Oakley's body didn't land in the water, so Rayshawn had to run down and push his body into the water.
Then the couple heads off to spend Oakley's money as if nothing's happened.
Vashon took Rayshawn to work, and then her and her 2 girls went shopping and bought some clothes, and she took her children to have their nails done.
Vashon has made the choice to cover for Rayshawn, and she's not turning back now.
During all of this time, Vashon had an opportunity to get away, to tell someone to put an end to this horrible nightmare.
But she doesn't. Instead, at the end of his shift, Vashon collects Rayshawn from work.
They headed back towards Indianapolis to her grandmother's house.
On the way, Vashon and Rayshawn learn some startling news.
They saw a news article where a body had been found in the Mackinac River where they had dumped Oakley's body. The body was discovered by a male who had went down to the Mackinac River to fish that morning.
The guilt of Oakley's murder begins to weigh on Vashon, and when they arrive at her grandmother's house, she finally breaks her silence.
Rayshawn killed Oakley.
What? Did you say he killed someone?
Vashon told her grandmother everything. The grandmother then asked,
What do you mean you had to do it?
Had to, Grandma. He was disrespecting us, trying to come between us.
Rayshawn may have been a person who had a lot of psychological issues growing up and therefore always felt that he was disrespected and reacted with extreme anger and rage. And in some ways, Oakley may have pressed some of those hot buttons from the past.
After the confession, Vashon's grandmother gets Rayshawn out of the house so she can figure out how to help clear Vashon's name.
Vashon's grandmother took Rayshawn to a family friend's home, left him there, and then contacted a family friend who was a detective.
The detective gets in touch with local police, and Vashon tells them where they can find Rayshawn.
Police came to a home where Rayshawn had been staying and found him hiding in a closet. And that is where they arrested him for the murder of Oakley Mitchell.
Later that day, Vashon is also taken into custody.
Vashon pinned the entire murder on Rayshawn.
The whole time he had the gun, I was just scared. I was scared of it. I said, Ray, I asked him, why would you do that? That man was a good man. That man was a good man.
But Rayshawn also plays the blame game.
She told me that he was trying to make her.
Okay, who told you that?
Sean.
Okay.
He said that Vashon requested that he kill Oakley because Oakley had made unwanted sexual advances towards her, and that he only complied out of love for Vashon.
Rather than taking their chances in front of a jury, both Vashon and Rayshawn make deals with prosecutors.
Rayshawn pled guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Vashon pleaded guilty to concealment of a homicide and mutilation of a body and received an 18-year sentence in prison.
In many ways, I think Vashon had plenty of opportunities to get out of this very abusive and crazy relationship with Rayshawn. And so when there were the detours ahead, she ignored each and every one of them. And each time she did that, she was further and further in and just couldn't pull herself out.
In the end, Vashon's dependence on her man claims a life and ruins her own.
That man was a good man.
Vashon risked a lot by helping Rayshawn with the murder and the concealment. She has not seen her children, and she basically lost everything.
Vashon blamed herself for Oakley's murder. If she had never brought Rayshawn into his house, he'd still be alive and playing bingo today.
At the sentencing hearing, Vashon admitted guilt to a number of things, including falling in love with a bad man.
In life, there are choices and consequences, and Rayshawn and Vashon made an unhealthy choice by coming together to meet whatever their unconscious, irrational needs may have been. But the consequence was a very destructive relationship that unfortunately ended the life of an innocent victim.